afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cara Kurtz and I am the Business Development Coordinator here at ASTA. I will also be the organizer for today's presentation. We are happy to welcome today's presenter, Mr. Peter Greenberg, owner and CEO of Peter Greenberg Worldwide. He will also be joined by ASTA's very own Jack Grant. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few important features on your screen that will allow you to interact with us via the web today. We will be answering your questions at the end of this presentation. To ask a question, you will be using your GoToWebinar pane. Near the bottom of this pane, there is an area that says questions. If you click the arrow next to where it says questions, this will open up a window pane. This is what you will be using to communicate with us. If you're having trouble hearing the presentation, please make sure your speakers are turned all the way up. If that does not rectify the problem, please try hanging up and then dialing back in again. You can send me any technical issues via this questions pane and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I will be responding via the same pane. Please note that all audience members are muted. We certainly want to hear from all of you, but with so many people on today's call, background noise would prove to be prohibitive, and we want to ensure that everyone can hear the entire presentation. Remember, one of today's lucky webinar attendees will win a $100 Visa gift card. In order to do so, you must be on this presentation from beginning to end to win, and we will be announcing the winner live after the Q&A session. Finally, please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for your on-demand viewing on asta.org by early next week. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Jack Grant and to go ahead and get the webinar started. Everyone enjoy.
Thank you for that introduction, Cara. Hello and welcome, ASTA Travel Advisors, or actually I should say, hola y bienvenido, ASTA Travel Advisors, to a first of a series of webinars that we are hosting with our partner, Mexico Tourism Board. The first of these is Mexico's Hidden Gems. And as you know, Mexico has long been a top destination for travelers that know a lot about the sun and sand and surf and beaches, culture, landscapes, gastronomy, colonial, and so forth. But there are many lesser known hidden gems in Mexico, which is really what this webcast is all about. This webinar will explore some of Mexico's best kept secrets beyond the all-inclusive resorts and the ones that are famous and we all know and love. We're going to concentrate on many aspects of Mexico to sell your clients, your customers on that may not be aware of. And we'll take an all-encompassing look of these hidden gems from the Mexico Caribbean, cross-country to the Gold Coast, San Jose del Cabo. Learn about these Mexico's hidden gems have to offer architectural treasures to jungle adventures and white sands. I have the distinct honor of welcoming our presenter, none other than renowned Emmy winner, travel journalist Peter Greenberg. Many of you know Peter from his TV show on PBS, Travel Detective, and his radio show. Peter is also the travel advisor on the CBS morning show. I'm sure you all know Peter, and we're quite honored to have him as our presenter. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Peter Greenberg. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jack. I'm actually talking to you guys today, believe it or not, from Poland, where I'm doing one of my PBS shows, but always happy to talk about one of my favorite destinations, which is Mexico. And to give you guys some history here, I first went down to Mexico as a correspondent for Newsweek when I was the ripe young age of 22. Was the first person to drive the Baja Highway all the way down from Los Angeles through to La Paz, and been going back ever since. And what I did earlier this year for my other PBS show called The Travel Detective, and we do a series of episodes on that show called Hidden Gems, I went to a number of destinations in Mexico and did just that. Found the things that were not in the brochures, not in the guidebooks, but that were totally accessible to the audience if they just knew about them. And one of the other reasons why I went down was because of the optics involved these days with tourism. There's so many destinations around the world that are somewhat shaded by State Department advisories. I've had long-term issues with the State Department and those advisories that go back almost 40 years. But in particular, in the last 18 months, when the State Department started revamping their State Department advisories to include not just individual destinations, but all 196 countries. And in an effort for them to streamline the system, they actually, in my estimation, misled the public even more by coming up with 4 different designations for every single destination. Like level 1 would be travel with normal caution. I have no idea what that means. Level 2 would be travel with increased caution. At this point, you're probably digging a hole in your backyard. And the next level was reconsider travel. At this point, you're probably putting plywood on your windows. And then level 4, which most Americans feel is a regulation, rule, or a law, and it is none of the above, it is do not travel. And sadly, a number of states in Mexico were getting level 4. And one of those states was Sinaloa. And so I decided, okay, let's go down there and see what's so dangerous about Sinaloa. Well, guess what's in Sinaloa? Mazatlan. There is nothing dangerous about Mazatlan. It's one of the great hidden gems of all of Mexico. And that was one of the first ones we did. In fact, I saw Jack when we were both down there to attend Tianguis, which was just an offshoot of what I was doing down there for. And of course, in the process of discovering all the hidden gems, I mean, we ran out of them. We just ran out of time to talk about them. There were just so many. And so if you've never been, the first time I went, believe it or not, I came from La Paz across the Sea of Cortez on an overnight ferry. And there's nothing better than that if you can do it. But what's great about Mazatlan is that the history is still there and it is remarkably well preserved. You've got the great plazas, and in the plazas, it's still a community. People gather, people enjoy, people eat. Some of the, people think of Mexican cuisine as a tamale and a burrito. Boy, are they wrong. We're talking UNESCO World Heritage cuisine. And there are a couple of restaurants in Mazatlan that if you can go, you should. Not only is the food great, the views are great. Jack and I know about one of them, Casa 46. And if you go up there, sit on the balcony and look over the square. The other big myth about
Peter,
Mexico, yes.
I hate to interject, but if you are, in fact, clicking through your presentation, we are still only seeing the blue screen.
Oh, we're not clicking through the presentation? I'm sorry. You're dealing with a guy who still has rotary phones. Hold on.
Nope, it's completely fine.
Not at all.
By the way, when I give public presentations, I never use a PowerPoint or I have to kill myself, so you understand why. Here we go. I see what we have here. All right. Thank you. Can you read do you see the presentation now?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to click through it for a second. There we go. We're going to go through this first one. You see there's a picture there of me riding a bike literally around the Malecon, and bike riding is cool there. Most people don't know you can run a bike and go everywhere. And when I say everywhere, that means take it to the beach as well. And at night, come back because the restaurants are so great. I mentioned Casa 46, but I'll mention something else, which most people don't realize, and that is that when you talk about Mexican cuisine, I want to also just talk about very quickly about Mexican wine. We'll get to this a little bit later, but I mentioned Casa 46, so why not mention it now?
I don't know.
In Baja California, the wine that they're making there is so incredible that what Americans don't realize is that 75% of all the wine produced in Baja California is exported to France. What do the French know that we don't know? I just answered that question, so I'll move on. I just thought I'd mention that. When you walk around the historical part of Mazatlan, they've really restored it. And you're talking art galleries and bars, boutiques, cafes, restaurants. If you're not on your bike, it's totally walkable. And of course, the Plaza Machado and the markets there, everything is accessible. But the coolest thing, and Jack and I were both there for this, is a completely restored theater called the Angela Peralta Theater. And
you have to see this theater. It is breathtaking.
Unreal. Everything is the way it was, and yet it's been restored. The seats are the hard wooden seats, but you don't care because look at those pictures and it's open to the public. It was at one point, slated to be demolished, and guess what? The country did the right thing. It was declared essentially a part of the historical patrimony of the nation about 27 or 28 years ago, and it's a great cultural treasure, and everything still gets performed there. So check the schedules. But once again, this is not something that people sell in tour packages. It's something that you can go and do. You just got to ask. It's available to you. There are great botanical gardens there. People don't realize this. I went through it a number of times. It's part of what I did for my television show. And when I was there, I'm not making this up, I was the only person there. Do you see a person in this picture? We took it. I mean, this is a great place to go. And guess what? I biked there as well. Moving right along, I mentioned the Malecon. They restored it. When I was there, they were just finishing putting all the cement back on the pathways, which means it's bikeable, it's walkable, and when you go out there at night, everybody's hanging out on the walk there because there's so many great restaurants. The only thing I want to warn you about, and I mentioned this in the show that I did, and that is the margaritas there are not small, they're not tiny, and so I guess the words I would use would be designated driver, but you will enjoy it. Now, there are a number of hotels to stay at. What I love about them all is that you see the boats in that picture. I'm a boat fanatic. I will use any excuse I can to get on a boat, and they're all available. They're not expensive. The U.S. dollar is still doing very well down there. And despite what you may have heard around other places in the world, the U.S. dollar is still king in about 8 different places in the world, and Mexico is one of them. Now, Hector's Bistro, I got to tell you, is a very cool place. I spent time with Hector. We went fishing together. We brought back the shrimp. But here's the cool thing. You don't just go there for dinner. You go there for breakfast because the bakery there is totally cool and you will not be disappointed. I mentioned the casa. There's a picture there of that balcony, and that's not even the private room. That's just the balcony. And of course, at night there's a market down below, and of course there's music. Now, let's move on. This is what I mentioned about Baja California Sur. It's amazing to me because people don't realize that, first of all, the connectivity is great. The connectivity is great from so many different cities. It's almost as good as Cancun in terms of getting there. The flights are not long from LA, really a hop, skip, and a jump. And what's great about it, which people don't realize, is once you get off the beach, you get desert. And there's yours truly on his ATV. But where did the ATV take me? And that's really interesting. It's not just the beach towns, which are gorgeous. It's this place, Cabo Pulmo National Park. Now, you may think a national park is a government operation. Well, in the history of this, it really wasn't. It was a group of families who were fishermen and realized that they were overfishing. And if they didn't do something about it themselves, this is not the government imposing it on them. The families got together and said, guys, we have to fix this. So what did they do? They made a decision that other communities have never made. The families all got together and said, we're going to stop fishing entirely, and we're turning this into a marine reserve, and we're going to make it open to everybody. And that's exactly what they did 23 years ago. And you can snorkel or dive in the water. It's a 27-acre marine reserve, and it's gorgeous and totally accessible. And it's only a 2-hour drive from Los Cabos. So, you know what? Well worth the trip. Now, the art scene here is cool. They've encouraged it. As you can see, we might call this tagging in Los Angeles, but in Cabo, it's art. And bring an extra suitcase because you're going to end up buying stuff. And what's great about it is it's also open in the evening. Again, it's all walkable. Moving on. You see the churches there. Here's my problem with churches. My problem with churches is my same problem with museums. I can do like one per city and then my eyes glaze over. I make an exception in Mexico, especially for the churches, because they go back to 200-300 years sometimes, and absolutely worth the visit. My suggestion is Don't just go during the weekday. Get up there early, about 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and go for a service. It is absolutely worth it. And you don't have to go during the week. Go on a Sunday. You'll be very happy. Now, where are you going to stay? This is cool. Some serious cutting-edge hotels now in Cabo, because you have the Hotel El Ganzo. This is a wild and weird hotel in the best sense of the word, because not only is it a hotel, it's a full-fledged recording studio. And every star you can think of has gone down into the basement to cut their album. And so you can imagine what the playlist is like in the lobby. It's great. And about 80 feet from the lobby of this hotel, you're jumping on a boat, you're going fishing. And yes, you get a lot of fish. It's great. You come back and the chef will actually cook it for you. Now, the resort at Pedregal, I think you've known a lot about. It's 5-star in all the best way. Their chef there does amazing things. Their mixologist is even better. And the entrance to this hotel at night is simply staggering.
Oh my God, you have to see this. It is really, it's literally cut through a mountain. It's a cave that is lined by torches. And you approach this in the evening. I'll tell you, you think you're on an episode of Survivor.
Except you win the episode.
True.
It's true. All right. So some other places you can stay as well, some other places you can eat as well. Keep in mind, all of these locations are in our show that we talked about. They're all accessible. They're all affordable. I mean, Pedregal is a little expensive. We know that. But then again, I happen to think it's worth it. But everywhere you're eating, one of the things I would suggest you order, and you've never heard about it before, is the almejas chocoladas. That stands for chocolate clams. No, they're not chocolate. They're just brownish in color, and they are either barbecued or grilled. It's unreal. And you'll also be able to get that in Mexico City as well, so check that out. Moving right along, speaking of Mexico City, let's go there. For me, we know it's the highest altitude metropolitan area in North America. You know it's got millions of people, nearly 9 million if you look at the whole city. And we also know that for many, many years it had the worst traffic in the world. They fixed that. And they not only did fix that, no more leaded gas for the last 15 or 20 years. So the pollution levels are really reduced. And as a result, you can actually get out there and hang out in the neighborhoods, of which there are 16 of them. And that's where I first discovered, by the way, the chocolate clams. It's amazing. Now, the museums of Mexico City, I have to talk about before we even get to the cathedrals. I mean, the Anthropological Museum is unreal. My problem with that museum is you can't do it in a day. It's like going to the British Museum in London. You can move in there for a year and not see it all. But you need to stay there first, simply because it paints the most appropriate picture of the history of the country. And I really recommend that. But moving on from that, now we talk about the cathedral. Think about this. We're talking 400 to 500 years back. And considering the fact of earthquakes in the region, I'm so happy it's still there. And you need to see it. It really gives you it's a talking story, if you will, of the Aztecs. And guess what? It's accessible to everybody. There's nothing off limits. Definitely worth it. Now, here's a little secret. The Chapultepec Forest. You know about the park. In fact, it's twice the size of Central Park. And in fact, it's one of the largest parks in the Western Hemisphere. And you'll see a lot of people who will go visit the castle and the zoo and the amusement park, and they'll float out in the lake too. It's kind of funny, the little pedal boats. But there's something else in that park. And what's else in that park are secret little entrances that you can find. It's in my piece that will get you to areas of the park. You'll see a monument. And this should be interesting to those people who are still talking about the issue of building a wall. There's a segment of the park which is a tribute to all the Mexican aviators who fought with the Americans in World War II. They were our allies, and all the Mexican pilots who died. And as you come around that monument, by the way, I biked that too. And as you come around the monument, there's a little entrance in the corner to a little secret part of the park. And you'll never see this in any other park in the world. as you walk into this little area, it's a beautiful little park within the park. And what's there? Library books in the middle of the park, and chairs, and hammocks, and recliners. And all it is a quiet place. It's a lending library in the middle of the park for you to come, pick out a book, sit and read. I'm telling you, in a city that is as busy and as crazy as Mexico City, this is a destination nobody else knows, but now you do. So I highly recommend that. And in fact, there it is. And it's this little pathway around that monument, and absolutely well worth it. And by the way, they also play some music, which is really not intrusive at all. So definitely worth it. Now, check out this neighborhood. I mean, wow. I mean, you can't get better food than I've had, except in maybe Oaxaca, in Mexico City. And so many great restaurants, such a great wine list. Remember I talked about the wine before, and so much of it is great Mexican wine. People don't understand how good this is. Everybody who I bring down there is blown away by the way. Let's move on. Now, cool places to stay. Look, you can stay at the bigger hotels like the Intercontinental and the Sheraton. I've done both. But now you're seeing the growth of boutique hotels that are cutting edge design. They're thoughtful. They're not just, style over substance. They're also thoughtful. And many of them come with really great restaurants and really great chefs. And again, affordable. That's the key here. The US dollar is still going very strong. Some other places to eat, take a look at the design. They're fun. They're fun. And of course, if you get there before 8 o'clock, you're an idiot. You go at 10 o'clock, right? It's the Spanish model. Nobody should eat early in Mexico City. That's my rule of thumb here. Now, let's talk about Quintana Roo. What's interesting about this place, first of all, I mentioned the connectivity in Cabo. Look at the connectivity here. Everybody flies there. Every airline is flying there. And it's the one city that's actually increased in service over the years. Now, some of it's got to do with Cancun. Of course, it is the airport in Cancun, but Cancun becomes the hub of the state of Quintana Roo. And it is, by the way, it's the youngest state in Mexico, but it is also one of the great historic gems, the ancient city of Tulum. And of course, Chichen Itza is not far away. You can't climb Chichen Itza anymore, even though I was able to do it a couple of years ago when we did the 1 hour special with the president of Mexico. They made an exception. They let the two of us climb it. And by the way, you don't want to climb it because the guys who built this had the tiniest feet in the world. And if you try to climb up, you'll end up in orthopedic surgery. So trust me when I tell you, you don't want to climb it, even if they allowed you to. But what a great way to see it. And go, by the way, go at the magic hour. Don't go at noon. Go at 7 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the afternoon, because then you'll find out who really was the great astronomer. It was the people who built it. And the way that they looked at the sun, the way that they worshiped the sun, you'll still see the original observatory there, and you'll see how they designed Chichen Itza with the snakes. That's all I'm going to tell you about. But when you get out there and you see the snakes and the sun hitting it at the right time, everything there was intentional. And then what you want to do is you want to stand, to give an idea of their sense of design and their specific architecture that was so precise. You want to stand about 100 feet away from Chichen Itza in terms of the tower there, and clap your hands and see what happens. The sound effect is just
it's amazing.
staggering.
It's amazing. I did it last August, and it is incredible how it reverberates through the entire area. It's really something. It's quite startling.
Exactly. Now, most first-time visitors will go there. Most first-time visitors won't go here, but they need to go. It's Cancun, and this is a special biosphere reserve. We shot it. It's amazing. Imagine this: 1.3 million acres of tropical rainforest. I mean, where do you find that? And you know what? It's not what you come to see here that matters. It's what you come to do here. And guess what? That brings you right to, guess what? El Meco. And what's great about this, it's on the north coast of Quintana Roo. You're going to find this original settlement. They preserved it. And most of the most people don't come to see this. They'll go to the other Mayan ruin sites, but they won't go to this one, and they also won't go to Muyil. The same thing here, and it's also on the border of the same biosphere reserve, Cancun, and it's absolutely amazing. The picture that you see there was taken by my crew. You see anybody else in the picture? All right, I've proven my point here. All decent trips using Cancun as your hub. That's why Cancun is so special to me. It's not just the high-rise resorts. It's not just the beach, and it's certainly not Senor Pepe's. It's using Cancun as the hub to see the rest of this incredible state. Moving on. Now, there are the all-inclusives, like Paradisus, Playa del Carmen, and Magic. But I'm going to tell you something here. Something has changed in the all-inclusives, and it's changed for the better. You know, in the old days, that was probably about, 2 years ago? In the old days, the food at the all-inclusives left a lot to be desired. And in many of them, it's sort of like, guess the age of the mystery hot dog in the rotisserie. Guess what now? You liked that one, didn't you? Well, guess what?
Totally.
Now, they brought in some serious chefs, and I will tell you, I stayed at Paradisus. My lunch there was amazing, and it was gourmet. There's another hotel I will mention as well called Le Blanc. And Le Blanc is in Cancun, by the way. I was amazed by this because they've taken the word all-inclusive and they've taken the asterisk out of it. We all know what the asterisk means in travel brochures. It means we're going to lie to you. It means that everything you think is all-inclusive suddenly isn't. And I hate the asterisk. It should be banned. Well, what they've done at Le Blanc, and I discovered this place by accident, is they really did take the asterisk out. When they say all-inclusive, they're not kidding. It's premium liquor. It's not just a steak. You go pick your own steak, 7 or 8 different kinds of steak. They make 12 different bread of their own homemade ice cream. 12 different types of fish every day. And of course, for workaholic, crazy people like me, all your long-distance calls are free from your room. The internet, of course, is free. And catch this, not only are the water sports free, they're even making the motorized water sports free. I mean, this is an unusual situation, but you know what? I love it, and I wish more hotels would follow their lead. But then again, that's in Quintana Roo. Again,
Peter, can I interject one thing in here? Have you visited the Hotel Xcaret? Speaking of 5-star all-inclusive.
Yes, I have. I mean, they've gone over the top in the entertainment area.
Yes.
They really have decided to tell the story of Mexico in an interactive and fun way from an entertainment perspective. And once again, they do a great job as well. Can I continue?
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Okay, good. But in any case, the food situation there, even outside the hotels, is great. Americans should know, I know I'm sounding elitist here, but you're not going down to Quintana Roo to eat at TGIF. Leave that back in Atlanta. You go down there to explore Mexican cuisine in this best possible form. And yet, if you do want to go back to your comfort zone, you want to have great sushi, they've got it. You want to have great Italian, they've got it. You want to have great French, they've got it. That would not have been possible 5 years ago. Welcome to the world of globalization. I talked about all that airline connectivity. They fly everything in. It's there, and it's available. So the eating experience in this state is truly remarkable. Now, this is a hidden gem in and of itself. A lot of travelers have been to, Puerto Vallarta, but we're going beyond that. Look at the connectivity there. The first time I went down to Puerto Vallarta was to interview the legendary director, John Huston. He lived there, and of course, he was a fisherman. The reason why he discovered it, well, what do you think Puerto Vallarta started out as? A small fishing village. And now it's the hub of an entire state. And it's got all sorts of great beaches 10 minutes north of the airport. You don't have to travel much. But here's the cool thing. The beaches start 10 minutes north, and the corridor stretches nearly 190 miles. Now, We went to this sanctuary, 418 acres. It's right in the heart of the hotel zone. Who knew? You've got great mangroves. Its connection to the ocean is there. It's protected. Listen to this, 100 species of birds, fish, and you've never seen a fiddler crab, you will there. And it's accessible to you, it's easy to get to, and it's there. Now, check this bridge out. It's about 20 minutes outside of Puerto Vallarta. We walked it. It's right above the river. If you're afraid of heights, okay, you're warned. But talk about a photo op. It's the longest suspension bridge in the whole in the state. In fact, it's the longest suspension bridge in the world. That's for vehicles. That's right. And you know how I went across it? ATV. Now, you think that's crazy walking when the bridge starts this way? Try that in an ATV. You know what? It's the e-ticket ride of e-ticket rides, and I did it 3 times. And then I think I was pissing people off. I kept on going. But you know what? The picture you see there was taken by our drone, and if you look carefully, you'll see me in the lead vehicle. I was not bringing up the rear. Now, small towns all around the region, and the cool thing about this is you'll find this little place in the small town of El Tonderoque. It's a place called Planeta Cacao. You know, when we did the Royal Tour of Ecuador with the President of Ecuador, we went to the cacao fields, and that's where there goes so much of the chocolate in the world. People forget they're growing it in Mexico too. And this is called the Chocolate Garden. Now, you're not going there just to buy chocolate. Guess what? You're going to make it. I mean, you're going to actually grind the beans and add the vanilla and add all the things that you're supposed to add, you know, depending on how much cacao you want to use. It's a great workshop, and you get to take it home. Not something you'd expect to find in Mexico, let alone in this part of Mexico. Now, the Canopy River, here we go, guys. It's not just zip lining. Look at the bottom picture there, man. That zip lining right down on the ground. There are great rafting and ATV tours. Again, this is all done by the locals. This wasn't done by big developers. It was done by farmers who wanted to preserve the land in this part of the mountain. So that, you know, I always like to follow the money. Where does the money go from these experiences? Back to the local communities, so they can still do what they were raised to do, which is be farmers. But they've added the thrill rides here with the canopy rides, and it's, oh man, it's so much fun. Now, a lot of places to stay now. I mean, I've stayed at the Four Seasons down there, and of course the St. Regis, but now you've got the Hotel W, of course, and some of the other locally developed hotels. It's all there. And again, I'm a big fan of the off-season. I'm one of those guys who believes that the off-season was created by escaped garmentos in New York when they were freezing their you-know-what's off in January, and as a result, prices went up everywhere else. I'm telling you, we shot this in June, July, and August, and it was the best. And I encourage people to whip up their calendars and be contrarian travelers, because why would you want to go when everybody else is going? I mean, you want to get away from everybody else. And better deals, better service, and much better experience, not only where you stay, but also where you eat. And there you go, guys. That was what we did. I will tell you, you can see it on my website, which is petergreenberg.com. It will be appearing in a few months on my PBS series called The Travel Detective. You'll see, just check your local listings. We can't wait to go back. And remember, we just showed you 5 different states in Mexico. Guess what? There are 32 of them. And most people don't even realize that. Mexico has a coastline of over 3,500 miles of seacoast. I mean, California can't claim that, but most of America can't claim that. So I'm open to any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you so much, Peter, for such an informative webinar. We are all open for questions. If anybody has any that would like to come in, it looks like our first few questions are in regards to the presentation, and this was recorded and will be available for your on-demand viewing on asta.org by early next week for everyone who asked that. Peter, how would our advisors go about booking these types of trips for groups?
Well, the best thing to do is have a conversation. Everything listed on my website and everything that will be shown on PBS is accessible. I'm a big fan of the phone call. I'm a big fan of a conversation. Every one of these travel providers is happy to greet you. They're happy to be seen. They're happy to have the experience. But even more important, they're good guides. They're very ecumenical. That's what we found on this trip. They're not just promoting, they're presenting. And that's a very big difference. They're sharing their community as opposed to promoting their one singular destination. So you will find, for any of the travel advisors or travel agents listening to this, a very receptive person on the other end of the phone who will also give you some guidance as to when to come, which might go against your conditioning, but you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Thank you, Peter. Would it be possible for you to share your website again? I will be sending out your website information with our follow-up email that goes out tomorrow, but for anybody that would like to look at that website today, Peter?
Sure. It's got the most original, innovative name ever. It's petergreenberg.com.
Peter, would you recommend renting a car or contracting through a local tour guide?
I would never recommend renting a car in Mexico for two reasons that have nothing to do with anything other than this. One, insurance regulations are crazier there and may not cover you properly. You're not covered by your own rental car insurance. You know, if you rent a car in America, I recommend that you don't take the rental car insurance if you happen to own a car, because your own policy tends to cover you anyway, so you're double dipping there. But in Mexico, the insurance rules are different. If you get involved in an accident in Mexico, both drivers get taken in. It's not good. I'm a big fan of hiring a car. They're not outrageously expensive, and local knowledge is everything. Why would you want to spend your time getting lost? Get a local car and driver and relax.
Yeah, the ground transportation, particularly in the resort areas, is just some of the best in the world. Beautiful vans, knowledgeable drivers. It's absolutely the way to go. That's, you know, certainly not a place where you want to rent a car. You want to enjoy the experience and take it all in. So, yeah, I would highly recommend using ground transportation.
And one more thing I'll add, and that is for workaholics like me, every van I've gotten into has Wi-Fi. So I love that.
All right, thank you, Peter. And would it be possible to go back to your title slide as well as the slide behind it, just because our advisors did miss seeing those with the blue screen? Thank you so much. And while you're doing that, it looks like our next question is, how do the advisors get access to the various people who are in these communities to start planning an event for a group?
Well, if they want access to the people that we interviewed, I will be more than happy to share their information. If they just write me to peter@petergreenberg.com, my staff will get them the direct names and contact numbers of everybody we spoke to.
Thank you so much, Peter.
You got it.
All right, so it looks like the other questions that we have coming in are not questions, just people thanking you for such an amazing presentation. We have one lady who says that Mexico is her absolute favorite destination, and another lady whom is letting you know that this was absolutely awesome, and she's gained so much information from joining our webinar today. So thank you so much, Peter, and to Jack for both joining us. It looks like our lucky webinar winner is going to be Ms. Vicki O'Connell. Ms. Vicki O'Connell, I will be getting in contact with you shortly. You are our lucky winner of a $100 gift card courtesy of ASTA. We truly appreciate you, Vicki, as well as all of our other advisors who have joined us today for taking time out of your busy day. And of course to you, Peter, I know that you're not even on our side of the pond right now, and you still took time out to join us, and we definitely greatly appreciate that. So thank you to you, as well as our partners with the Mexico Tourism Board, who got this all set up for us. So thank you, everyone. This will conclude today's presentation, and we hope you have a wonderful remainder of the afternoon.
Thank you, Kara.
Not a problem, Jack.
Oh, one last thing, travel advisors, be sure to look at the next issue, which I think will be out next week of Travel Advisor. We've got a great interview with Secretary of Tourism de la Madrid, and he takes us on a kind of another tour of Mexico. So that's definitely a can't miss issue.